What does the most famous billionaire engineer have at front of mind? What is the meaning of all these Elon-related memes? Don't worry, I'll catch you up with all the latest.
This is the Engineering IRL Podcast, a place for engineers in the real world. We try to break down engineering concepts and figure out how to apply them to real life. Let's become better problem solvers, better engineers. This is your host, Andrew Sario. Let's begin.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Engineering IRL podcast for engineeringinreallife.com. I am your host Andrew Sario and this is revision 46 of the show. And in today's episode we'll be doing an Elon Musk Roundup. He's been in the news a fair bit and he normally is, but there are some interesting and funny things that I guess I've been following and thought it'd be worth following up here. So most of you listeners are probably engineers and probably have some curiosity about the guy. So I'll just run through some things that happened that are of interest, and then you'll be caught up because there's a lot of memes going around. There's a lot of things that happened. And the first is he tweeted recently. If you're following his tweeting, obviously he's doing a lot on the cryptocurrency front. But one of the interesting ones he said was he agreed to do a Clubhouse with Kanye West. Clubhouse is a new social media platform that's going around. It's still invite only, so you can download it for free, but you need an invite to get in. But anyway, what makes this interesting is the type of conversation they would have. And if you've listened to Elon Musk's interviews and Kanye West's interviews, particularly on the Joe Rogan podcast, so you have a common ground to compare with, you can see that both of them can go on quite the tangent and can go on different topics and in depth. And Kanye can go really wide on a bunch of topics, and Elon can go really deep on specific topics. So it definitely, I think, would be an interesting conversation. And if anyone wants to follow all these tangents happening in the conversation, it's those two. So it'd be cool to see how they what they talk about and how they pull it together. And so if you want a full preview of what that video will sound like or what that interview could sound like, I actually created a little video and I just clipped together bits and pieces from both of their interviews with Joe Rogan. So if you go to YouTube, you can look that up. You can find it on the Engineering IRL YouTube channel, or you can go and just search for the Elon Musk interview with Kanye West. Now, before we get into it, just a quick word from our sponsors. The first is CloudMate Networks, the place where you go if you would like to purchase any Cisco Meraki. There is no better time to invest in cloud managed networking, and if you want to find more about it, just head to cloudmatenetworks.com.au and head to the contact page if you have a custom query or you would like a personalized quote. Have you ever taken the opportunity to improve your problem-solving skills? Now that 2021 has started, you may have a New Year's resolution goal to read a book. What better way than to pick up a copy of 10+1 Steps to Problem-Solving, an Engineer's Guide? It is the perfect gift to improve your problem-solving skills from an engineer's perspective, but also learn something from a career with all sorts of information, diagrams, and things like that. It's a quick read, so make sure you head to Amazon and search up 10+1 Steps to Problem Solving. Now, back to the show. Now, as I say, that Elon was again on the Joe Rogan show just the other week, so I'll highlight the most interesting parts because it was a 3-hour conversation, which sounds long, but for me, I eat that stuff up. I listen to the whole thing straight away. But so here's some highlights from my perspective that I thought is the most interesting. One was, what's the deal with the flying Tesla? So Elon says the new Tesla, the back seats, it's almost like a, it's a small, they're kid seats in the back seats. And if you buy the Tesla, it'll be like that. That's fine. But there's the SpaceX upgrade. They're using SpaceX technology to do this, where those back seats are instead boosters so that you can hover maybe, he said 6 feet above the ground. He didn't want to be too high up so that the impact of or the severity of an impact wouldn't be, life-threatening, straight away. But supposedly it's going to be able to fly. So we'll see what actually develops out of that. Sometimes he makes these grandiose claims. Most cases, if he's saying they're actually working on it, there'll be something that comes out or some video that shows it. Whether that's going to be readily available for everyone, that's a different question. But it's interesting. It's interesting. Imagine seeing these flying Teslas going around. So even if it hovers, I think that's pretty cool. And even if it's inefficient at first, it's just cool to see some of this, tech get developed. And, an idea comes to the mind. Let's try and do it. Even though looks like a considerable effort to figure it out. Sometimes if it's cool stuff mixed in with the actual main job getting done, it keeps it fresh, right? The next was, you might have seen some of this pointy starship memes going around, but it turns out that, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie called The Dictator, but Sacha Baron Cohen's movie, and in it, there's a scene where he's talking to an engineer who developed his, nuclear missile, and the nuclear missile was designed properly, yeah, but it was like curved at the top, and he was asking, "Hey, why isn't it pointy? I need this missile to be pointy." You can look up the scene, but he demands it to be pointy, even though the engineer goes and explains to him, it's no need to be pointy, like, it adds no value, and but he said it must be pointy. So in that vein, Elon said the Starship must be pointy. So some of you with a keen eye out there seen the Starship and said, why is it pointy? Why does it look that way? Most of us just looked at him and went, cool. But he specifically told his team it must be pointy. And it's all about that meme. Like, literally has no other value to the ship except for the meme value, and that's it. And, quickly on Starship, it is the largest flying object ever made, which is greater than 5,000 tons. And that's crazy. Like, if you've seen a rocket up close, they're gigantic. Like, literally, even as is, forgetting the Starship, if you see any rockets go up, it's literally a building. It's like a 2, 3, 4-story building. Like, you're standing next to a building that flies with explosions. Like, it's crazy. So that is where we are at with that technology. And that's what, it's just interesting, right? And the way that you can have space to still make it a meme, I think keeps it way more interesting for us, the viewers, and people witnessing history happening. Next is the Tesla truck. I thought the cool part about this was, the question came to AI and replacing jobs of drivers and all that stuff in self-driving trucks. And, it's like, what's the solution there? What's the interim step look like? And he said, well, there's a concept that he's thinking about, which is potentially a convoy instead. So you'd have a main driver that is in the leading truck, and then all the AI trucks are then following. Because the thing is, self-driving is one thing, but self-driving when you're just having to follow a main car or a vehicle in front is a lot easier, apparently. The next one was 5G doesn't cause COVID or is harmful to humans. So he was basically saying, hey, you can wear a helmet of phones with 5G and be completely fine. Like, he's saying, literally don't worry about it. And if you do the research, like, it shows you shouldn't be worried about it. It's pretty straightforward. And, this could be, you could just, I always say it's not good to take an argument from authority. Like, an argument from authority is not really a solid argument. But in this case, say you can save yourself the headache and just take the argument from authority. If he says it, that's probably good enough for most people. And in line with that, the next one is, he says there's definitely no aliens that we've discovered, at least, or that we know of. All the typical stories that you hear about, like, he would know. He's in the space industry. He's deep into that. He has different connections. He's talked to different people. He's got his own space tech out there. Lots of experts and all that. If there was some that we had discovered, the types that we show in movies and things like that, or the conspiracy theories type ones, he would know. And there's nothing, right? So I'm okay with that. Next one's a little bit interesting. People wonder how many hours of sleep he gets. He's notorious for how much work he does, and how often he's working. He works twice as much as other people and all that sort of stuff. So him getting 6 hours of sleep was refreshing to hear. Even Joe Rogan was like, oh, that's actually decent. That's actually reasonable, right? So some people can function pretty well on that many hours of sleep. He sounded like he's made adjustments over time, because he said any extra, he feels not productive enough, right? So he's definitely experimented with this and then come to that conclusion, and 6 seems to be the sweet number for him. But it means for yourself, you can weigh up and try different things, try a few weeks at different hours and trying to figure that out for yourself, what works best. Carbon capture technology. So I've always found this topic interesting. You've seen a lot of reports on some of the tech that people have developed. It's not there. It's really not there. So Elon's funding, $100 million competition to carbon capture technology. So teams and companies are, playing their hand at figuring out who can do it the best or who has the best proposal for what they can come up with for that, and he'll fund it. So I think it's interesting. I also think it would be a powerful technology, right? To convert that back. Obviously, it's a difficult one, but you convert that back, you can help balance the equilibrium, even if you can do it at a decent clip, like not fully efficient, right? Like even how we generate power started very inefficiently. Some of your cars will convert at 15% efficiencies, and then at a power station it might be 30%. But if it's enough where you can have an impact at a price point that's worth it, now we can all of a sudden get to some creative solutions, and I think that'll be the way it goes. Next, Tesla airbags deploy based on location and weight distribution. So next week I might do an episode about data-driven decisions and how engineers can be making better ones. And here's an example of one. So, airbags are awesome in terms of the risk reduction or the severity of a crash. And what improvement can you have there? The first one is more airbags, right? But better than that is what Tesla has done now is their airbags will deploy based on your location, like where you're sitting on the seat, and your weight distribution, and the entire car adjusts to that. So positions to actual people in the car, how they're seated matters, and they take that data into consideration, and then can control the airbags to react in a certain way depending on that positioning. That's insane. That's so cool. And that increases the safety. So, and we all know this. The more information you have, the better you can react to a situation, and it's no different with technology. And finally, there was no weeds shenanigans, none of that crazy stuff. Nothing that got him in trouble, so you won't be seeing any of those type of memes. But in terms of content and interesting facts, I think it's worth listening to. So give that episode, that podcast, a listen to, especially if you're curious about what a conversation with Elon sounds like and the breadth and depth he can go to into particular topics. It might surprise you, the level of math, what he can go through, what he's doing, and how he can articulate it. And it's always challenging to hear some of those details go through that would raise a question to a fellow engineer that you cannot ask. But it's still interesting how much he goes through at a CEO level, right? And I think that's cool. And that should do it. I'll leave it right there. Quick roundup. Next week's episode will have a lot of data-driven stuff, which will be very practical for you. I think some of this stuff happening in the news around Elon Musk and the technologies he's working on is very relevant and easy to talk about because there's a lot of public knowledge around there. So I'm not really encroaching on any, secret company information and things like that. It's like one of the rare engineers you can talk about in terms of the technology and behind the scenes of what he's working, because the guy tweets it. He tweets, what their considerations are, why they made design decisions and things like that. So you get that inside look in public space, meaning people like me can talk about it. But you learn from the thinking process. I did a video on SMART goals on the YouTube channel as well. And the reason for that was to provide the background around how you set SMART goals. And the next video that will be on the YouTube channel is how Elon specifically sets SMART goals and how that helps him achieve it. And, that backs up my point of why you, Mr. Engineer listening to this, or Miss Engineer that's listening to this, should also be doing the same. With that being said, thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you had a good one, and, remember to subscribe, share it, tell someone else, and I'll see you in the next one.